I don't know how you feel about it. I don't know if we talked about this before, but I'm not a big fan of the two-state solution thing. I don't think that it works. All right, good, okay, because this is what I've heard. Like that's the reasonable, rational explanation. Oh, well, we see two states. Like, no. Like, you think that's going to solve this fucking problem? First, you think Israel would ever do it, and second, if you did,
they
it's not going
literally
to
say
solve
that they would
anything.
never do it. They literally say that no matter what. Even when Hamas came and they were like, we will accept 67 borders, which is inherently a two-state solution, Israel was like, no. Okay, so you're not interested in anything. And I think that, to me, what I always say is that I'm for a one state, hopefully named Palestine. But I will admit that that is something that may be up for debate. I don't know.
I can work with that.
Be.
The name,
the name. That is where I will compromise. Is maybe exactly. The name, and even then, I'm kind of still hardlining it. But I think that it should be a one democratic state that has equal rights for all. Oh yeah, the scapegoating. Yeah, it's unfortunately very likely. And so that to me is something where I'm like, I got distracted by the scapegoating.
Oh, sorry. No. You were talking about the single state solution is the only
that doesn't make me go. That actually makes me very happy. It needs to be a one state democratic. It needs to not be an ethno state. And everyone needs to have equal rights for all. But it also, not that everyone is like, so you want to kick out all of the Jewish people? First of all,
Jesus
significant
Christ.
Percentage of, and it has nothing to do with them being Jewish. It has definitely to do with Israeli citizenship. Mm-hmm. I would be for anyone who's an Israeli citizen to then have a path forward becoming a citizen in this new one state. However, I do think that given the large percentage of specifically Israeli citizens who are not even just first generation immigrants to Israel, but on top of that have dual citizenship, like I would hope that we could have an incentive structure for those people who do have another home country to go to, that they have incentives to do so. Not that they're forced to do so, but that there are incentives to do that. Plus, we would need in this one state reparations for the Palestinian refugees to have a way to come home, and have not even just like a way to physically come home, but economically speaking, they need reparations to rebuild the societies that have been destroyed for 75 years. That is what I think we should be fighting for. But at the same time, like, I will say that I'll fall in line with especially whatever Palestinians in West Bank or in Gaza decide. So like if they decide that 67 borders is what they are fighting for right now, then I'm on their side. Whatever they decide, I listen to. I will just take the furthest position that I think I can and push for that in hopes that we shift the Overton window to more concretely hover over the position that then they are having.
Yeah, it's true. It's not good enough to condemn Netanyahu. We need to condemn the government of Israel's actions as a whole. Absolutely agree, Kimberly. And it's a wild take on our part, but ethno states are bad. Just like I mean, I don't know.
Crazy idea, specifically theocratic ethno states. You know, there's just something about them. It makes me a wee bit.
Very odd. And so when you bring up like this solution, like, I don't think that, I forget what the name of the law is, like the Jewish nation state law that they have in Israel that basically says it needs to be a religious ethno state, that, the Jewish people have a unique right to self-determination. That's what it says, or something. And it's like, I don't think that's cool. I'm sorry. Like, you are going to have to do a lot of work to defend that to me. And then they'll come back with arguments like, well, there's Muslim state. I don't like that either. Like, you can't, that's not a defense.
They've got a gotcha. And I'm like, first of all, I'm atheist. So like already. Second of all, I'm a secularist. Like I do fundamentally believe that we should be trying to create governments that are secular, i.e. from specifically organized religion.
I don't know what?
And like, I don't know why that's crazy. I'm also French, so that does influence it. And I will admit that the French have used that secularism to then implement levels of Islamophobia that I'm not for, that I do not support. But in terms of actually implementing religion in your state structure, I have nothing against you practicing your religion, but in your state structure that has citizens from all sorts of backgrounds, no. It's like you guys, when you say this shit that this is important, you guys haven't caught up with James fucking Madison. Like, I mean, you are so far back. Like, this is insane that you say this with a straight face. And they think that it's a gotcha too, because they're like, see, that's why Jewish equals Israeli, because they are a Jewish state. And I'm like, no, because that does not include, one, all of Judaism, first and foremost. Second of all, it's a state that is using a religion to justify its actions in part. But two, like, you don't have to be against. I personally do not like organized religion. That is my own personal opinion. That is also from my background of being raised Catholic. I'm just not really for it.
It's also the correct opinion, so don't feel bad. It's also the correct opinion.
But that's the thing, is like, I'm not going to be against anyone practicing their religion. If you would like to practice Judaism in the one state solution of Palestine, I think that you should have every single right to practice it. It should have zero influence, just like Islam should have zero influence, just like Christianity should have zero influence. I just don't think that that's how we should be building our laws.
Not a difficult concept. And it's weird because they try it too, because it's like, oh, well, I remember someone criticizing Ilhan Omar years ago, talking about how she was having these, well thought out criticism of the actions of Israel. It's like, I don't see her criticizing Saudi Arabia. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Because it's consistent. Like, it is like because I don't know. One, they're just stupid. They don't know a whole lot. But it's like, if you guys criticize Saudi Arabia, like when you talk to a normal person, not some far right extremist or whatever. It's like, okay, you have criticism against Saudi Arabia, against Syria, against that doesn't mean you hate Islam, right? And they get that, like they understand it. But when it comes to it's like, oh, okay, so that's
really actually anti-Semitic, and I'm like, no.
It's like, that's not how this shit works. But so one thing that's brought up too is, like you mentioned, so like it's self-determination, whatever the people decide in this area, by secular means to govern amongst themselves. And they say, well, if we do that, their favorite answer is that, well, this is going to be complicated. They've been saying this whole time, it's always complicated. And it's like, well, it's going to be really, because like, yeah, that's how nation building works. And so that's how society works, how civilization works. It's
States
never
are
easy.
Full of contradictions. It's almost as if that's kind of inherent to them. That's one of my things too, is like the gotcha moment of like, if Hamas were in power, then they would be implementing some sort of Islamic rule. And I'm like, okay. And all of that anyone says of like, I want to implement an Islamic theocratic state, I'm against. Does that mean that I'm going to condemn any sort of resistance against an active, ongoing genocide? No, that is not the same thing. And I also think that there's an important thing of like, a lot of people are like, oh, so then classic, because you're a communist, you hate all religion, and communism has banned religions in the past. And I'm like, yeah, as an anthropologist looking at that history, I don't think that that's the best way to go about it. I think that one of the best ways to minimize the effects of organized religion on our state apparatus is through education, not by banning different religions. I personally don't think that that's a good way forward. I think that if you educate people, a lot of them will slowly start leaning not as much towards their religion. Not saying that you can't be educated and still believe in your religion. I just think that that is a trend that we will see. And I think that that's a much better way to go about it than banning it.
It's what literally always happens. Whenever you get more educated, people get realized.
It's almost as if that's why the Christians in power were so terrified of science. Like,
yeah, the problem takes care of itself. And one of these days, real quick before I close up here, another thing that let's say where it gets complicated, it's like, well, these two groups of people have been at odds with each other for so long that there's no way. There's like, okay, what I love to ask is, okay, would you have given freed slaves the right to vote? And that's what because like that's essentially what we're dealing with here. It's like, would you have been in favor of full rights for South Africans after apartheid? Because it sounds like you wouldn't have been. Like, I'm just saying, and a lot of them are honest, they wouldn't. Let's be real. Like, a lot of them wouldn't do it. Yeah.
And I love it when they try to tiptoe around it. They're like, well, that was a different time, and I'm like,
yeah, if you were there, it wouldn't be a different time. I'm asking you what you would have said back then. And it's because back then they said, we're going to do it. Like back 1865. And they're like, all right, you know what? It's fucked up. We're going to give them the right to vote. You are arguing that, once again, like, you guys are going fucking backwards. But I want to close, like, one of these days, I'd like to have you on again so we can talk about anthropology. Like, that sounds really fun. Like, I would love to have that conversation. And as you were talking about the banning religion, the French tried that in the French Revolution.
That's why when I said that I'm a secularist, as someone who's French, like, again, I have seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen many attempts at different forms of secularizing a country, and the current one is very Islamophobic. Not great. So I personally am just pro-education.
So for those of you don't know, during the French Revolution, I think it was Robespierre. Like they got rid of the clergy because it was corrupt as fuck. I get it. I understand that, but he realized they secularized a lot of the nation. Like they stopped using a 7-day week, and
a lot of kids were named after saints, and they stopped doing that too, as like officially as it was before.
But my favorite part is he realized something that turns out to be true with a lot of people is that one problem that we have as secularists is that church or just organized religion in general fills a lot of roles in people's lives that are very important, that is hard to replace when you take the church away. Where are you going to get married? Where are you going to have your funeral? Stuff like that, like stuff that really matters. And it's just hard. It's hard. And so Robespierre realized that. And so he started, what was it called? The cult of the supreme being, like this like fake religion is created out of midair. And of course it completely crashed and burned because you can't, that's not how the shit works, man. You can't just force this. Yeah. You need like hundreds of years of nonsense or like a really good, like sci-fi writing career, like L. Ron Hubbard, before you get people to buy into religion. I saw something like that.